take back everything I said last week. I've completely changed my mind. So last week I had a bit of a crisis of faith because I hated everything I made. I know that that's just part of the process. It's what we call the messy middle, where everything looks quite horrible and you question whether you actually have the skills to make good paintings. But from experience, I know that passes. And what I do when I want to figure out my paintings, when I'm kind of in that stage where I don't know how to move forward, I turn to this little thing. And there's many ways you could do that. I've shared different options before on my channel. I use an app called Procreate, which you might have heard of, and not an ad for Procreate, but I do like it, but you do not have to use it at all. That's just a little caveat before we go. And I am not going to share you how to do that. Again, I've got some videos on it. All I'm trying to say is I take a picture of my painting, which will look something like this. And then I just try some options painting on here digitally, which helps me figure out what options I could do, because there's much less pressure to get it right in Paint when you do it. And you can just try different things. So I just add a new layer, and then you see I've added some little blue things here, for example, and I really love that. So last week I hated them all, or most of them. And then I did this exercise and figured out that I think they're basically finished. And there's a few that I'm already very happy with, a few where I just want to make some final tweaks. So I think we're going to finish them today. I'll start by showing you the ones that I do already love, then we'll make some changes to the other ones. So love this one, and love this one. And they're quite different to paintings I made before. They're much more raw, they're much more unresolved, you would say. They've got a lot of line work in them, but they are part of the series behind me, which they're basically also about rawness and authenticity and leave in bits you might have covered otherwise. Anyway, let's get on with it. So I've now fixed all my pastel marks from the Neocolor 2 crayons, the water-soluble ones, by just adding some gloss medium on top, and now they shouldn't budge. So the one thing I want to add here is some yellow. So I've got this lovely muted yellow, and I've got a really bright one here and there, and I also want some over on this side. So I think I'm just going to add a touch here. I'm just going to use this yellow oxide. That's my base yellow. I'm hesitating to call it a primary yellow because it's not really a primary yellow, but it is kind of a yellowish colour. I think that's already enough to draw your eye over there. I will have to see how it dries, because it might dry much duller than this. Here I love that this is more simple, and I love that it's mainly yellow. I do want to add a little bit of kind of an orangey colour, so something like this brown, but a little bit more saturated. Let's mix something. I'll add a touch of the brown just to make it a little bit more desaturated. How's that? A little bit more yellow. I do need to remember that it will dry a little bit darker than this. Let's make it a little bit more red. And this is it's quite transparent, whereas I wanted it to be a bit more opaque. I think it's because this has been, I had this palette covered, and then when the water evaporates, it kind of goes down onto the paint, so it makes it a little bit more watery. Maybe make this edge a little bit softer here. I'll let it dry and then see if I want to go back in. On this one, I love the vibrancy. I think I just need something a little bit more neutral, just a tiny blob to set it off. And it's already a little bit more neutral in this area, so I think I'm going to make this a little bit more neutral even. I want it to be fairly light, well, like a medium value, but not as dark as this colour I had mixed down here. Yeah, lighter than that. trying to look at it from a bit further away so I can see the overall effect better.
If you like this video, consider subscribing.
Here, those two dark shapes feel a bit disconnected, but I don't want to just add more of that dark red. So I think I might balance this orange colour up here. Let's go for the same colour. I kind of want to blend it into this central area. A little bit more. And I also want to add a little bit of a complementary colour because everything's quite orange, and again I want something to complement that. So I'm going to use this cool, I don't know why I said that weird, this blue, and just add a few dots around the painting. So I've got a bit of that colour everywhere, but only small bits. Maybe I could even vary the colour a bit and make it a little bit darker, just a touch. This was already kind of a bit blue, so I'm making that a bit more blue. That was a bit too bright here. I think draws too much attention here because the contrast is from the light to the dark red next to it is so strong, so I'm just making that a little bit darker. Wonderful, I think that really brought it to life. Here I just think this little pink could be a touch darker. Just use this red and add kind of a transparent layer over it. A tiny bit too much. Just want it to be quite a subtle change. Maybe up here, where it's already looking a little bit red, I'm going to add a touch of that. This one I was actually painting this way last time, I think, but I really love it this way around, so the heaviness is at the bottom. And here, again, I've got the yellow here, so I want to kind of mirror it over there. There's a little bit of something yellow looking there, so I'm just going to make that a little bit stronger. And then these marks here that I did with the Neo colour, I want to just take back a little bit, so they're not as light and not as contrasting to the next to the blue. And this ultramarine is a very transparent colour, so it will actually look much lighter when it's dry. Looking at this one again, I think it hasn't covered very well. Just going to mix in some of this mauvey colour that I've got. Oh, actually, let's try this thing we mixed earlier, which is also a little bit lighter. I don't know why I'm painting with well, I know why I'm painting with my finger now, because I don't want to get any more brushes out. Probably isn't the best idea. No, that's not working. Let's use this brush. Okay, I think I was just being lazy. I got the colour out, which is this colour. And I've still got a bit of the light blue on this brush. This one I do want to make a little more vibrant. Not sure that made it more vibrant. Off camera, I've actually messed with this one a little bit more. I've added another layer of yellow to that shape and then a glaze of red, which I think it makes it pop nicely, and I've also dabbed it a bit so the texture's not as even. It's still drying, so you can't see. I like it. So I don't know 100% yet if they are finished, but at this moment in time, I think so. If you haven't seen how I painted those, I shared the whole process, and you can watch all 4 videos in the playlist that I've linked in the description. Until then, thank you and bye bye. Actually, I forgot to mention, if you want to see these in person and you are in the UK, there are 2 dates that I'm going to be at art fairs. So I'm going to be at the other art fair in London. I'll put the date in the description box, and I'll be that is in October, and then I'll be at the Manchester Art Fair in November, end of November. Again, I'll put the link and the date in the description box if you want to pop by and maybe see these in person. Thanks and bye bye.